satsang, which is the satsang, if you might remember, that we put in the pre-opening. It's a very good satsang in its whole, and it has to do with things that we were speaking yesterday, by the way. Irma was there, and J like G, who is a teacher, he's a doctor in Chinese medicine, but he also teaches yoga, has studied yoga, and stayed in the Vivekananda ashram in India. Well, he came here, he lives in Queens, and he's going to somehow cooperate with us to bring people from Manhattan to here. He works in an addiction center, a top-notch addiction center in Manhattan. Anyhow, we were speaking about being good, doing good things, good and evil, free will, you know, the concept of be good, and the concept of you are in charge, i.e. you have some sort of free will that could make a good choice or a bad choice, and you know, we in the spiritual path somehow you get into the mood of being good, doing good. So what this is all about, what is all this all about, of this being good, doing good, you know, it's what this satsang is all about. So I'm going to put it, I will probably stop it from time to time to make comments if they come to me, and you know, after the satsang, if you want, we can have, you know, a kind of a sharing of ideas that you might have, you know, that might have struck your mind, you know, or your heart.
Very good. Many people, and most people, have good intentions. Everyone here has good intentions. But the question is, what is behind the good intentions? What is the motivation for the works that one wants to do? I have come across people that would join various organizations and societies and do some wonderful work. But yet that wonderful work brings no spiritual gain whatsoever. And because the intention, the motivation is for self-aggrandizement.
While you think you are doing something, while you have this perception that you are the doer or that you are the choice maker, i.e. that you are the good one that is performing that good action, the motivation immediately is self-centered for the ego. In reality, to put an example of this is giving. In the very moment you are conscious that you are giving, so I give you a rose, you throw it to the floor and you stamp it, and I feel hurt because I was not giving you the rose, I was exchanging the rose. The only way I can give something is when I am not even aware that I am giving. because in the very moment that I have an idea in my mind that I am giving something, I am valuing it with respect to me, and thus, inevitably, it's a self-centered action. It's a ego-motivated action. We are very unable to flow. One of the main things we teach is how to flow spontaneously in the day you have to live, which means that you discard the idea that you are the doer and you just flow in the actions you perform, and you give yourself completely in the actions you perform. And when you are so involved in the action you are performing, you are not even aware. You might be giving something, but you are not aware because you are just, flowing in that action. So, most of the things, whenever you think, oh, how good I am that, you help someone with something, in the very moment that you have the idea that you are doing it, it's for your own self, because you are, even if it is for your own, feeling yourself, you give, something to a poor man in the streets, and in your mind is the thought, I am good, and that's why I do this. So it's ego aggrandizement.
It is for self-ego fulfillment, with the idea of saying, oh, I did this and I did that. When every good deed is done, and the very moment you think in your mind that I have done this, then that deed is valueless as far as your spiritual self is concerned, as far as spiritual unfoldment is concerned.
Which means it's valueless with respect of a spiritual unfoldment. You can bring some value with your action to that poor person, that you have provided him to eat, but with respect to your spiritual unfoldment, valueless.
It holds no value whatsoever. Of course, one works or does things for the sake of the work or for the sake of doing it and not for the reward. So many people with good intentions and doing good works who want a reward. They want a reward so that they could have recognition that so-and-so did so-and-so. It has some limited value, but it does not have the real spiritual value that we are after. I do remember an instance where I was involved in building a community center, which comprises a temple, a school, and a hall. So this one person approached me, being the head of the organization, approached me and said, I would like to give £50,000 to the organization. I says, very good, that's very generous and kind of you. But then he says, there's one condition. I want a plaque put up saying that so much was donated by so-and-so in memory of his mother and father. So I said, no, I'm very sorry. We don't need your £50,000. We are not here to boost your ego. The very little deed that you are doing, and he's a multi-millionaire, so 50,000 means nothing to him. The very deed you are doing, you want to perpetuate the memory of your deed. So, for your sake, you are not being charitable. You are trying to buy. a memory so that after you pass away, the memory will still linger, where people will say, Mr. So-and-so donated this and that. Now, same thing with everything else when it comes to good works. It has to be done for the sake of doing it, and not necessarily as a duty.
Action, good works, to begin with the good, because it is every action you perform. The secret is that in the day that you have to live, and this is Karma Yoga, the essence of Karma Yoga. And in today's society, in the Western world, for householders as we all are, Karma Yoga is, what we need is people of action. What we need is action. And Karma Yoga is just realizing something very simple to realize, which is what you are with respect to others is you are known through your actions, not through your thoughts. So when you worry about what others think about you, forget about that, you just perform action. And learn to perform action without looking for the results of the action. Don't try to do good actions. Simply learn to act, forgetting about the results of your actions. Whenever you are doing something, whatever it is, during any day of your life, if you look at yourself, you will see that your mind is looking for the result of that action. You have to learn and you have to discipline your mind so that the mind gets completely involved in the action and you leave the results to God. That's why we say make it into an offering to God, because you leave the results to Him. And then, perform action. And in that action, you are giving your life to life, which is for what life is all about. Every life gives itself to life so that life continues. Everything, The orange tree gives oranges for others to eat them, and the cow milk for others to drink it, and the dancer dances for others to admire them, and so on and so forth. So, and how do you give your life? Through your actions. And what is it that one has to learn is to act with as Guruji used to say, non-motivation motivation, or unmotivated motivation, which is for the action itself. Your motivation is the action itself. You find satisfaction in the action, not in the results of the actions, because in fact, you never find satisfaction in the results.
Please check the power of the device and cable connection status, or press the input on your remote to change to another input. So fast. HDMI 1.
HDMI. Very good. Sorry. why this is not sounding.
Tell Alexa, maybe she will know.
¿Es de la tele?
No, I don't know.
Que nos pilla.
HDMI 1.
No, pero si tiene que salir por la mesa. Estaba saliendo antes. Don't know what has happened with the sound, maybe one in the storm. Okay, there's one way. In and out again.
Because duty too has strings attached. But I have to do this duty, and you force yourself to do that duty. There should be no force and neither any compulsion in any act. It has to be a spontaneous giving, where you just do. And this is what the Gita tells you, that your job is do the work, is to do the work, and you're not entitled to the results thereof. So with that idea in mind, when we do any kind of work, without any idea of any return, then that is the time the fullest return is given to you. It gives you a far greater awareness, a deeper insight into life. It gives you an insight into yourself, because that is an unfoldment. Now the person that could work for the sake of work, it is very easy to say that, but the person that can work for the sake of work is necessarily a highly integrated person. So, for example, teachers in our organization, I always tell them that when you teach, remember, you are being benefited more. And the analogy I love to use is this, that when you water the garden, the water cleans the host first, even before the water reaches the flowers. So you see the great benefits that one gains by this total dedication and unselfishness. Now, what do we mean by dedication? Dedication in essence contains a devotion. For devotion, if there is no devotion, there can be no dedication, and if there is no dedication, there is no commitment. Now, what are you committing yourself to? Or what are you committed to? You are committed to yourself. And when you feel that you're committed to yourself, that you are responsible for yourself, that you are responsible for your own evolution, then all the actions that you perform would be spontaneous. So here the motivation, because no one in this mundane world could be entirely desireless. So have desire, but that desire should be towards self-unfoldment, which in turn means to become closer and closer to God or divinity. So that is a divine desire. And then as one progresses on this spiritual path, even that desire disappears. Even that desire disappears. Because when you become one with divinity, then there is no question of desire anymore, for divinity is desireless. Divine will is a phrase so misunderstood. Divinity does not will anything. It is a common saying that let thy will be done. Now, will in itself implies a thought process. Without thought you cannot will. And that is more for the human mind rather than the divine mind. So, what do we mean by divine will? It means that within the laws of nature, things has to function in a certain way. It is the law of nature that water will run down a hill and not up the hill. It is the law of nature that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So it is the mechanism of the world's functioning. It is the mechanism of the laws of nature, which is will, which is divine will that was not created or premeditated, but it came about as a manifestation. Now,
which basically means that there is not a single atom, a single particle in this universe of ours, and those includes all of the particles that we are composed of, and everything moves according to certain laws that are unbreakable. So, you know, that's divine will. Divine will cannot be broken. You know, like you cannot break the law of gravity. You can understand it, but you cannot break it, you know. If you throw yourself off a fifth floor, you will fall to a certain speed, guaranteed. And if you plant carrots, you don't expect onions. Which means that that is never going to happen. Because people think about divine will as a miraculous will, you know, like a will that could break the laws of nature. And no, as Einstein also said, God doesn't break his own laws.
if you plant onions, you would not expect potatoes to grow. And yet if you think divine will is so powerful, that can be changed. You can plant potato seeds and onions will grow. Because we have given so much emphasis and power to divine will, the miraculous power, and yet divine will does not operate miraculously. That too He is bound within the laws of nature, for what we understand as that supreme will is only the will of nature and not of God. For that divine essence is beyond all thought. It does not think. It is a neutral energy. And as I would always say, it is like electricity that could be used in a stove to produce heat or in a refrigerator to produce coldness. So, a man with good intentions, he would say, I'm acting within supreme will, divine will. What he actually means, that I'm acting according to the laws of nature, in accordance with the laws of nature and not against the laws of nature. That is divine will. Now, individual will comes in when man starts analyzing and weighing the pros and cons of the situation for the fulfillment and expansion of his own ego.
So what is individual will? Individual will is just a function of the human form, of the human being, that in its stage of evolution, is something that comes about, which is this analytical power of the mind, and is that faculty that we exercise when we are exercising it constantly, when we are evaluating the pros and cons of any situation in which we are involved, and we are evaluating the pros and cons with respect to what? With respect to you, because you are perceiving the universe self-centered. Everything is surrounding you, and you, the little I, which is the human animal, has the instincts of survival and perpetuation, and so it wants to survive and perpetuate itself. And so it makes this analysis of the pros and cons, and in this analysis you could be doing a wrong analysis and somehow go against the laws of nature. It's not that you are going to change those laws. To put an example so that you have an idea, and that would be the only place where you can define that if you are doing a good or bad action with respect to the direction of evolution. If you are according the laws of nature or against the laws of nature. Say, for example, in the 20s, when there was the movement for women to vote, you would have people in their own particular circumstances making the analysis that going against women voting. At that time there would be a good section of society that would go against women voting. Those were kind of going against the law of evolution, that was that women would have a vote. But they were also needed, because by them being against it, the ones that were in favor pushed more. And in this push, because this is the law of action and reaction, so you get a force pushing back, so then you get a force pushing in the same opposite direction, same. So at the end, evolution is going to find its way, or nature is going to find its way. But if in your analytical exercise of your individual will, which is only used with respect to the aggrandizement of your ego, if you make a decision that goes against the laws of nature, that is going to generate a friction that is going to eventually generate suffering of some description. Now, the way to flow with the laws of nature is becoming a totally integrated person, i.e., that you have become one with God, and then you flow completely. But in the meantime, you learn to flow in actions, and you just give yourself completely in one action till you learn to flow in the action of cleaning the plates, and then you learn another action, and you just teach yourself to flow in the actions. There are many actions during a standard day. An adult has many actions that he has to perform, yes or yes. You just simply have to clean the kitchen, for example, or you have to prepare the food, or many, and if you work more even, no? You could have like 14, 15 hours of actions that you don't even need to think about if I have to do them or not. You have to do them. So you have lots of opportunities to exercise one of the most important yogas for householders, which is Karma Yoga. And Karma Yoga is true service, because you are making your action an offering to God at the end of the day.
That is individual. So when we say thy will be done, we surrender the I-ness that is within us, the me and the mine-ness that we have, that is obliterated, that is forgotten. We become oblivious to it and just flow with the laws of nature, and that is the Supreme Will. So here, good intentions can have no power whatsoever as long as it is based upon the needs of the ego. Once the needs of the ego and its bolstering up could be eradicated through spiritual practices, then those intentions that started in our little minds merge or manifest as the intentions of the Supreme Mind. Then only all our work bears fruit, beneficial fruit, sweet fruit to benefit others. There was an old man who was planting mangoes. Now, mango trees take at least about 6-7 years to grow and bear fruit. So some youngsters were passing by, and they tell this old man, you are so old, you've got one foot in the grave, you're going to pass away. And then why do you plant these trees? Because by the time the tree grows and bears fruit, you will be dead. So he says, I'm not planting for myself, I'm planting for others to enjoy it. I'm just doing my work. I still have some strength in my body, and let me use it for the benefit of others. Now, that is good intention. That is good intention because it is not for his little self. It is not for self. It is selfless for the self of others. You see, that is good intention. So, you are going to do something for Auntie Matilda. she's not well, she's ill, so you go down, do the dishes and wash the clothes and this and that. There are two reasons why you do that. The one reason is this, that it is because your auntie and she is not well, so as a niece, you have to do that duty. You don't feel like doing it. You say, oh, that chore. You're doing it for the duty, but the observers from outside would say, oh, how wonderful little Mary is. She helps her auntie so much, yet she hates every moment of it. So that does not bear fruit. It does not bear any fruit. Fine. Another reason could be, let me look after Auntie Matilda, and I know she's got some of that. And I'm sure if I look after her well, she will look after me. You see, in the one instance, it is a total disgust, becomes a chore, becomes a burden to do it. In the other instance, there is selfishness. And that could bear no fruit.
So these are the main two reasons in this example. Raj puts the main two reasons, the main ways that the analytical mind of the little I works. One, you do it because it is your duty. You don't feel like it. It doesn't come out from you. You do it because you think it's your duty. The other one, you do it because you think there is something for you. In both cases, externally, you will look good, and there is some good produced because you are at the end of the day helping your auntie. But spiritually, those things bear no fruit. That is not the way to go with respect of learning to service or learning Dharma Yoga.
So, outwardly it might seem to be good intentions. To the observer, it might be so wonderful and good. Little Mary is so nice, but yet it is totally fruitless. See? So like that, you have certain ladies, they board sick at home. So they would help the church to stand on the corners with collection boxes or do other little things. Something good is done. Look, everything has some value, but we're coming down to the basics of it. So, why does she do that work? To relieve her boredom. That is selfish. But if she did it with love, she'd be so occupied, and yet she says to herself that this is my love that I'm doing it for, then it is of some value. You see? So, when we have good intentions within ourselves, we must analyze ourselves. We must use the power of discrimination, that the so-called good intentions, are they really good? How much interest have I in it? Personal interest. And if I do not have any personal interest, any selfish interest, then it is good. And you see how good intentions work. And then again, the person does something with good intentions and it backfires. It backfires because however the good intentions were, it has not been properly thought out. The consequences of the action has not been thought of, or perhaps the person is incapable of thinking what would happen if such and such an act was carried out. What was the second part of your question? After intentions?
Can you give us some guidance on how to make the wisest use of this energy? And when you talk about the relationship between one's own level of awareness and the degree to which one can believe the suffering lives.
The difference between one's level of awareness and how far one could reach. That should never be measured. That should never be measured. For life itself is an adventure. And on the path of the divine, it is still an adventure. The person that really succeeds in reaching divinity must be brave enough to leap into the unknown. Must be brave enough to leap into the unknown. For who really knows? Who really knows?
For us, what we know is this little I we identify with. And as we interpret our lives based or putting that in the center, for us, what is unknown is say, forget about that, forget about all your analysis, discard it all, and just stay in front of your day and just flow with whatever the day brings. That's a leap into the unknown. And because we are afraid of doing it, because you say, what's going to happen with me? I always tell people, whatever you want to protect is going to finish in the same place, a little hole of 8 foot by 4 foot. And you will be feeding the flowers and the worms. So, there is nothing really to protect. Also, people think that this little I of yours that you want to protect have some existence in the minds of other people. But it doesn't have any real existence in the minds of other people. People, when you think about others in your mind, you just think projections of those others, and they are always related to your identity. And in the same way that when your mother speaks mentally with you, speaks with a different daughter than what you really are, and she's your mother, imagine any other around with whom, what kind of you has in his mind. He has nothing that has to do with you in his mind. Because people have in their minds mainly and basically that little I that wants to be protected. In meditation, what we learn is to discard it by just letting go of your thoughts. Because wise thoughts, or thoughts with wisdom, or creative thoughts, they come by themselves and they have a different taste in them, and they are realizations, they are kind of revelations, Wisdom and sanctity is basically the same thing. So it's a leap into the unknown. To do that is a leap into the unknown because we don't know, we don't have any experience of what is living without putting that little I in the center of my perception. And we don't know what is living, letting go of all that analysis of the situation that we are doing, evaluating the pros and cons of any situation, always in relationship with us. And it's a leap into the unknown, and it requires you to be brave and and regard this as an adventure and say, look, this is an adventure. So let's leave it. It's never too late.
Only the self-realized man knows God. And yet after knowing Him, he cannot talk about Him. He cannot tell you what it is. He can only infer what it could be to you. Because the finite mind has not the ability to describe in intellectual, logical terms what the infinite is all about. And we find this in daily life. If we eat sugar, who can define what sweetness is until you taste sugar yourself? You can talk of the chemical components in the sugar. You can talk about how sugar is refined, but nobody could ever describe the sweetness of sugar. Likewise, as our awareness increases, we'll be knowing more and more of what divinity is and what it is all about. So, let us not think of the goal that is in the background of the mind, because it has to be in the background of the mind. The very laws of nature are pushing us to that goal. Let us think of our present awareness. How much aware am I? And as we do spiritual practices and our perspectives and attitudes change, we view things from a much wider angle. And these things we can see. As we climb up the hill, when we are at the bottom, we see a small section of that which is in front of us. And as we climb higher and higher, the view expands until we reach the top and we have the view of the entire city. So, we do not know what the entire city is going to look like when we reach the top of the hill, and neither should we worry about it. Because if we start thinking what is going to be the view from the top, then we are doing it with a preconceived idea. And how can one have a preconceived idea of that which is beyond conception? So in this adventure, we say we leap into the unknown, and as we climb higher and higher, we enjoy the vaster and vaster view that is in front of us. And there lies the beauty, there lies the joy, there lies the joy of self-discovery. And so therefore, the path becomes joyous to the goal, which is joyousness itself. And once you reach the pinnacle, the top, you will find that the path and the goal is but one. For the path too is divine. Why we feel frustrated along the path? Why do we feel frustrated? Because we have not come to the realization that the path too is divine. For all is divine. The end is divine. The beginning is divine. And the path from the beginning to the end is also divine. And that is how when we look around with that integrated view, nothing seems wrong. everything is right. Everything is as it should be from the angle of divinity. The things we see wrong, we see because of preconceived ideas, things which we have been taught by our parents, by our educational systems, by our judges. Thou shalt do this and thou shalt not do this. And as we said in one of the talks this week, that it has some use, but a very limited use. Blessed is the man who can see no wrong in others. Blessed is that man, for his view will be at the divinity that is in man. Tattvamasi, thou art that. And when he sees this, he is not concerned of the outer actions of the person. Lovers. Man loves his wife very much. She might have so many faults, but because of his love, he does not see those faults. But if there was no love in the man for his wife, the slightest little thing will irritate him. He will make a molehill into a mountain.
And that is one of the, to go back to how the satsang started, which is you need dedication, and the dedication needs devotion, and this ability of seeing everything good is basically the ability of seeing the beauty that is there in everything, which is basically the ability to love, which we all have, because that love is what is pushing us, but we block by deluding ourselves that what exists is the little I, when what exists is existence itself. So I will leave the satsang here, and I open it to the floor. Don't they say that in the parliament? So
Yes.
Are the 13 universal laws considered laws of nature?
what are they? 30?
The universal laws, like the law of cause and effect, the law of free will, all that. Is that considered?
Well, I don't know who put those 13 universal laws together, really. I don't know them, so I cannot answer you, but yeah, we could say that laws of nature are all those laws, known and unknown, through which nature operates. Because, we know some of the laws, or we have understood them scientifically. Other of the laws, we have understood them maybe more philosophically or sociologically, and maybe we have some spiritual understanding of the one law, which is the one God, so whatever, conceptualization is made of these laws, some of the conceptualizations may be wrong. There was a time that, I don't know, human beings thought that the earth was flat. Definitely was not the case, We will be thinking today things that are definitely not the case. We would be conceptualizing those laws in ways which are wrong. But that evolution sorts that out little by little.
You mentioned that beauty is in everything. Beauty, when you become aware of your awareness, you see the beauty in everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you become aware of your awareness, I would say when you love, which is what the light with which you become aware, the light that shines for you to become aware of anything is love. That's the light that is required. Without love, there is no light. Without love, you cannot be aware of anything. So in reality, the light that brings awareness is love.
He spoke about the duty, like we have duty.
Huh?
Like he spoke about duty. We all have our duty to do.
What is
Duty?
Duty, yeah,
Duty.
yeah.
So with those duty, we still have to make decisions sometimes, like how to.
If you think
For the
about,
action.
if you
So
think
then-
about really, if you think about really, you wake up every morning, okay? So you know, because we have an idea of how things are, but forget about that idea. You wake up every morning. So tomorrow you are. Let's put tomorrow as an example, okay? You wake up every morning, and then. You are in front of your day. Say today, to make it easy. So you woke up this morning, and what was the most important thing this morning when you woke up? For your perception, from your perception, use your memory. Was all the things that you tell in your mind, or the day that you had in front to live? I asked you.
About the day I have in front.
About the day you have in front to live. Okay, so if you are there in front of the day you have to live, most of the things you don't have to decide anything. You can decide if you come by car or you call a friend to come here because you already made the appointment, say, to come. No? Once you come here, you mean you can choose that chair or that chair. And even those choices are not even free in the sense that you know you will choose that chair because in your concept you want to be in the back, or in your concept you want to be here. So whenever you make a decision, you put into play the relationship with your eyes. So all those choices that one makes are just mundane choices that really don't change anything. You can only be confronted at times with big decisions like, shall I marry or shall I not marry? But, you know, or shall I divorce or not? Shall I sell my house or not? Well, those big decisions, you know, when you are confronted with a big decision, do you know what I do? Big decisions, I normally do it with a coin to make them little. Shall I divorce? Yes.
And you will follow?
And I will follow, yeah.
Even if you have inside you feelings.
No,
maybe
in
it's
that
not
case I
right.
have no decision to make because, you know, I don't want to divorce.
You don't want.
Everything comes back to the same thing. Take one moment at a time and just kind of stay in that love state. When Guru was talking about going through the actions of what you have to do as a course of duty, or going through the actions of what you have to do with an end result, is not really what we're after. But if you just do it, be in the action of doing, like keep your awareness simply on the doing as you do it.
Exactly.
That's what
Moment
we're
by
all-
moment. And we are presented with all these actions every day that we can just make the action and offering you to God. Make it into a thing that you do for the divine. In that way you are forgetting about yourself. You get obliterated. Only the action and God is important. And then this frees yourself. Because what bonds us is the result that if I don't get this, my identity will not be what I think it has to be. And it's a way, it's not that we speak this way, but that is what is happening really. Forget about your identity. I mean, what is your identity in any case? Who are you? The stupid bag of memories that woke up this morning? I mean, that the little I is a bullshitter, all of us, you know. All of us are covered by a bullshitter. There is not a single person that it's not like that in this world. So this was another practice that Guruji taught, which is, and we will finish like that. Point like this. Put your hands like this, all of you. This is a practice he taught in a satsang. And now repeat. I am stupid. I am stupid. I am stupid. I am stupid. And then you finish saying, he is the only one that knows. It's true, he taught this in one satsang in Spain, in his last course in Spain, you know, and he said it in many satsangs, you know, which is a reality. I mean, look at your minds, how they work, bullshitting permanently. So, if you discard that, you are not discarding anything of value, you can be sure of that. So learn to discard it. Just start saying, what can I do now? And practice karma yoga. Amongst the other yogas, but karma yoga is about this. And it's a very practical, simple, and adequate yoga for Westerners, let alone New Yorkers, and householders. Because they have lots of actions to perform every day, yes or yes, so, you know, they are not in a monastery, lost in the mountains. So we call it a wrap then?
It's a wrap.
It's